All right, now we are.
All right, so this is our third lightning talk. We have 5 speakers tonight, and we will definitely see how long this lasts. We are enforcing a strict 7-minute talking rule because last time got a little out of time and out of control. So Ken will make a noise when your 7 minutes are near or up, and then you'll have a couple minutes just to wrap it up. But 10 minutes and you're off. So we got that. The next talks will be, that's the noise. The next talks will be October 1st, and we already have people sign up for that. And then we need, I believe, 4 more people for the following talks. So if you're interested, head on over to the Firehose Lightning Talk app. Sign up for a talk or add a topic, and then just let me know if you sign up for one so that I can put you on the list and schedule it. But that should be either October 15th or the 22nd.
Cool.
So our first talker is going to be Michaela, and she is going to show us how to use Illustrator for developers.
Cool. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, hi guys, I'm Michaela, and I thought that we could do just some basics of Illustrator. So, to start with, I just want to go over kind of what the difference is between Illustrator and like most other design tools, and then quick commands, and then I'm going to show you how to make an icon that you can export to an SVG. So the major thing about Illustrator, and I'm in Illustrator right now, is that it works instead of with raster images, it works with vectors. So like this image right here is comprised of pixels, and it's got, each of those pixels has a color that allows you to see it in mass together. You can manipulate those. But with Illustrator, everything exists as like a shape or a little object, and it has characteristics that you can manipulate aside from just color. So like this pig is composed of all of these shapes, and they have like a fill and a stroke, and this body is made up of points that can be manipulated to make it different shapes. And then they each have also a different z-index or like relationship to you front to back. And so whatever is new is closer to you. So that's like why you can see the eye above the body. And you can like move everything around. You can transform its position to make it like in front or behind it. So that's kind of like the main idea about Illustrator. So to get started, setting up your environment, like I just use the regular Workspace Essentials, which you can find in Window, Workspace Essentials. Has a nice set of toolbars that are really easy to navigate. And then the tools that I use pretty much most of the time are the selection tool, which we're in right now. And you can see what you're in based on like your cursor changes depending. So V just like moves stuff around. A is the tool that I use to manipulate the pig, and that like manipulates actual points on an object. M is a marquee tool, which helps you to make rectangles. So like this rectangle doesn't have any color to it. You can add color. And you can hold shift while you're building a rectangle to make a square. L is an oval. You'll draw that from the side. Again, if you want to make it a circle, you hold shift. If you want to build anything from the center and make it like the same, then you hold shift and alt at the same time. Backslash is line. So right now this line doesn't have any characteristics. We can give it a fill or a stroke to make it show up. And then pen tool is the tool that I use to draw the pig. And so that allows us to build a whole bunch of different anchor points which are connected into a line. T is for text, and we'll do that later. And then the major other things are just zooming in and out and copying in front and in back. So like to copy in back, I use often when I'm making like a little bug mock or a button mock-up. So I've got this rounded corner rectangle, I'm going to copy it and paste it behind, and then drag it down and change its color to be darker. And now we have like a little button mock-up. So I think the most useful thing to do is to learn by tracing. And so I'm gonna move this. So like right now I've got the Firehose icon, and it's like I think I stole it as like a PNG or a JPEG. And I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. So what's nice about this is it's like a pretty complex image, but it's made up of some pretty simple shapes. So it's a really good like trial. And another great thing about Illustrator is similar to Photoshop, it uses layers to differentiate different, you can use it to differentiate different objects. So right now I've got the image, the background image on a base layer, and I drew some shapes on top of it. So I'm just going to finish drawing out the object using the pen tool that I talked about before. Make sure you're on the layer. And then just go ahead and find your corners, and then use the eyedropper tool or eye to select the right color. And again, one more shape, and then eyedrop it again. And so now we've got like all of the facets of the Firehose gem or the water droplet. So to save it as an SVG, we're going to open a new document. So Command N, paste in the gem, and you can see like my little, I'm using the anchor tool to line things up better. And then you're going to want to edit your document so that it hugs the icon like really closely, because when you put it into your front end, you don't want it to have a whole bunch of extra like padding around it, because you want it to just take up like the least amount of space that it needs. And then we're just going to go ahead and save as, and you can save right down here as an SVG. And I've got these presets saved in the slides, so you can refer to them later if you want to go ahead and look back at it. And save it, and now you have an SVG that you can pop right into your HTML, and it'll scale properly in your front end. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is just text. So text is the only kind of exception that we have to this whole everything's made up of points and lines. And so text actually is made up of text inside of a box that's made up of points and lines. This is important to know because if you build text with a box, you can manipulate the points around that without like editing the actual text itself. But if you build text by just hitting T and then starting to type, you end up losing all of the integrity around the actual font itself, and it turns it into this like half object, half text thing. So if you like the best thing to do is really just to type out your text, and then if you want to be able to export it as an SVG or like manipulate it as a series of points and lines, you expand it. So we'll copy our icon from before. I'm going to drag that over, and you've got the whole Firehose logo. Let's shrink that down. And I'm just going to object, expand, make sure these are selected, hit OK, and now this is a group of like points and lines. And you can now export this whole logo as an SVG. So that's it. Any questions?
Awesome. I have some questions.
Sure.
Because I hate Illustrator stuff, so
Okay.
because they always give you great Illustrator files for things you want to use for free, but no way of, like for me, I don't know how to use it. So how do you, is exporting to an SVG the only way to do it, or can you export into like a PNG or a JPEG?
Yeah.
I can use right out the gate.
Yeah, and so actually that's a great question because I use that pretty often as well. So another thing you can do is actually easier because you don't even have to open up like a new file. You can just go ahead and create like a new, so actually what I would do is like group this whole thing together, and then instead of finding the bounding box around like this single object, it'll find the bounding box around this group. And then you can build a document by just clicking on it, and it basically like draws the very limit of the object. And sometimes I like to, so like if you're doing an icon and you do it this way, I scale it down like 98%. So that way I know that like the tips aren't getting cut off. And then you just press Command-Alt-Shift-S and it opens up Save for Web. And then you can switch between PNGs, JPEGs, and GIFs and have a bunch of different settings.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there a free version?
There is a
or a cheaper version, because I know like CS6 is still super expensive. You could probably find somebody with it that you could get your hands on. Creative Cloud is.
I have been
I don't
lucky
think
enough
it's
to
that
get in school.
expensive.
Yeah,
that's how I got mine. I got mine through school, super cheap.
Yeah.
But Creative Cloud isn't too expensive, but to have a monthly membership will eventually get expensive.
Yeah, I haven't upgraded to the cloud version just like for that reason, because I don't want to have to keep upgrading. And it works just fine. There's like some quick commands that don't work, but otherwise it hasn't changed much as a tool in the last few versions. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So
Super interesting.
So I have a question. How do you get good at sort of figuring out what shapes and like, because like I think it seems if I knew what shapes and what things to do, I feel like I'd be able to do it. But I think the hardest part of like drawing the pig is it's almost like code. I just wouldn't even know where to start. It's like, do a box or so what tricks do you use to break down like an idea into like the shape components so you can know what to use the tool to do?
So actually, let me pull up like Chrome and let's see. So this is like one trick that I use to just like get better at drawing different things is I just go to Dribble and I like find random things that other people have made. And it's really interesting because like you definitely start thinking about like images as layers. So like if I know that this guy who I follow is like, I know he's doing these as like basic Illustrator objects and then he's like going over them in Photoshop to kind of get like the textures. But you start to just see like, okay, this is like a curve with a straight line and it's got another thing. And so you can kind of start looking at it as like the different tones. So let's copy this image and we'll actually run and we just paste it in. And so like I can say like, okay, right here he's got like a different skin tone than this one. But for the most part, like this is his head and he's like got this. And then you just kind of go around and it's generally just like picking out the colors that are the same for me. And then like knowing that that's going to be like one object versus another or one shape versus another, right? And then like here where his nose is, you're probably going to want to draw the nose like a different shape that sits then on top of this like face object. But they're all like, it's just about how you then like make them relational to one another.
Fascinating.
So.
Wow, this is so cool. Like I've never looked at like other people's drawing and try to understand it in layers. I'm sorry, my mind is just blown. Like looking at it that way and like the way you had the pick pulled out to all the different layers, I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense. Because once it's all put together, you're like, oh, yeah, that's a cool looking little flying pig. But I would have not thought about looking at it in layers. That's really cool to train yourself looking at like some simple logos or something on Dribble and then actually be like, how many layers do I see right now? Oh, 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely like people, there's like I've been tricked, right? And like maybe that's not how that guy does it, but that's like how I would do it if I were going to go ahead and try and like recreate his technique. And then I would pull it into Photoshop and like maybe make it a little fancier. But,
awesome.
Yeah. And then I think what's cool is like if you get really good at it, you can start like building stuff like that in pure like CSS, right? Because then you're thinking about objects as like the way that they sit on top of one another, and then you don't even need to like use a different program. So.
I don't believe it. I want to see it done. Live demo.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, anybody else have any questions?
I had one quick. What are some things that like Illustrator really shines for, like on the front end? Because I know like InDesign is more like for print. Photoshop's obviously more for like creating GIFs and photo editing. But
yeah, so like I got into Illustrator because I would use it to. So I would use it. This is when Illustrator became like my best friend. I was in architecture school, and I would export drawings from Rhino, and Rhino would export items from different layers as like the same color. So if you had like 70 layers and that could have like thousands of lines on it, you could have, so he asked, what does Illustrator really shine for? Like, what do you really want to use it? And then he said, InDesign is really good for like print, and Photoshop is really good for like individual images. And so there's a tool inside of Illustrator called Select Same As, and you can select all of the objects that have like the same fill color or the same stroke. And so when you have like just a ton of objects that are all like out of order, you can select them based on the same stroke color and then apply them to the same layer and then hide that and move on to like the next thing. So when things are kind of like in total disarray and there's a lot of them, it's actually really good about like treating objects with characteristics. So I don't know if that's a good explanation, but cool.
Awesome. I certainly learned something. So
Same here.
I can actually use Illustrator files now.
Yep. Super easy.
Sweet. All right, next up we have Chris, and she is going to show us how to use Pry for Rails.
All right. Let me share. All right. Maybe. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so like Colin said, first I'm Chris, and I'm going to be talking about using Pry with Rails. It's just a better debugger than Herb. All right. So can you see the sidebar there? Like, is everybody? All right.
I can't see.
I don't
see your presentation.
Okay. All right. Okay. So first, what is Pry? It's what's called REPL. It's when you pass a script in, it does several things. First, it reads, evaluates, prints, and then it does a loop. So basically, Pry is just Herb with superpowers. It's a really good debugger, but then there's other really neat things that it does. It's like a gist integration, so you can send your code right up to gist as a command system and a lot more. Okay, so let's go ahead and install, and it's a gem, so it's pretty easy to do. So you just do gem install Pry, and that gives you all the basics. And then if you do pry-doc, that actually gives you the ability to get to the Ruby core. And then the --no-ri and --no-rdoc, that just simply says don't install the documentation. And then you want to go into your gem file and use gem pry, but you don't want it for everything. You just want it for development. So you use group development. And then, of course, when you mess with your gem file, you want to do bundle install. And then to get all the functionality within your entire environment, you want to do pry-r.config/environment. And that just loads, like I said, the full environment for Ruby. All right, and then that gives you access to Pry. So if you go into Rails C in your console, you can manually enter Pry by just typing Pry. Or if you want to make it your default instead of Herb, you go into your config folder and in your environment and development, and you put this little snippet in. It's silence warnings, and you use that because Rails is not going to like you not using herb, so it's going to throw up a bunch of warnings. So to tell it that it's okay, you just do silence warnings, do require pry, and then herb equals pry. All right, and then these are just some basics that you can do with pry, and we'll go over those at the end if we have time. All this stuff's in the documentation, so it's pretty easy to find. But I would like to go ahead and jump into a live demo. So hopefully this goes good for me. All right, so I'm going to do our chess app here. I guess we'll get started. All right, so we're going to try, and this is some old code. Just I grabbed something, pulled it down, and oops. Hopefully this works. Live demos. Okay, so the white knight moves okay. So let's try a pawn. All right, and that's telling us that that move is not allowed. So obviously there's a problem because the black pawn can move too. All right, so we're going to jump into our code here and just look. When the pieces update, it calls this validate move. And I guess the two biggest ones are right here that it's going to call on: valid move and nil move. So since the knight moved okay, I'm going to assume it's something within the pawn logic, and I'm going to go there, and this is what it's calling. So what we'll do is jump in. All right. Okay, we are going to jump in right here and put binding.pry and then save the file. And that just tells us, it tells pry that's where we want it to stop it. So we're going to go back here. Oops, sorry about that. And we're going to try our move again. Okay, and it seems like nothing's happening, but if you look up here, it's working. So let's go over here, and right here you can see pry has stopped the load, and it's telling us that this is where we are. This little hash rocket here is telling us this is where pry is stopped. So then we can just go in and copy the next one. And if you look at this code, all of these have to return true for it to pass. So we'll do the first one. That one return true. Second one return true. And this is just a really easy example, just real quick to show you. Okay, that one return true. The last one better be the wrong one, or else we're in trouble. All right, so that one returned false. So we'll just jump back into our code, and I'm going to comment that one out. And then the problem was down here with the diagonal diagonal move allowed. So I'm going to put the binding.pry there. Save it again. And then look at the code and see if I can figure out. And I know that the diagonal move is supposed to allow the pawn to move in a diagonal position if it's going to take another piece. But in this case, we're just trying to move straight, and there's no piece to take. So I obviously forgot to add in an if statement there, because if we're just moving straight, then we want it to return true, and then leave that method. So return true. if our new x equals, whoops, our x position. All right. And then that's going to run through, and let's see if it lets us move. And there, it let us move. So that shows us that that was the bug in our code. So we can go back in and put that in there and remove the pry. Oops. Okay, save it. All right, and then we'll try to move a white pawn and make sure that that worked. Okay, so it looks like that took care of our bug in the code. But so that's really easy to go in, and it saved us time. Obviously, we didn't have to go through all the different methods and say, okay, that code all looks good. So it's definitely a help, and it kind of earned me the nickname in our group as the exterminator, because anytime there was a bug, I'd just grab pry and jump in there and kind of fix the code. So let me show you some of these real basic things that come with pry. So if you type Rails C, and I loaded it in as my default, so it's going to come up with pry. And right here it tells you pry, and you're in your main, the main part of pry right now. And it's kind of like the shell commands. You can CD to different classes. So within my chess app, we have the game model. So I CD'd into that. And if I type game, well, that didn't work. Sorry. It worked earlier. So CD in a piece. All right. And then you can do, okay, there you go. So you can call methods. You can call methods on these. So there's the first and then last. And it just kind of gives you a rundown of everything. And then to get out of this, you just CD up, just like you would in the shell commands, or you can just hit exit all, and that just kind of gets you out of there. So that's basically a brief rundown. Let me go back to the presentation here and show you some of the places where you can learn more. There's a Rails cast for this that's really good, so that is the link. It's episode 280. Josh Cheek has a Vimeo video that's an introduction to pry, and it's really good. And then there's obviously pryREPL.org, and that takes you to, it has links for all the wiki and the documentation. So I guess if there's any questions, I'll try to answer those now.
I've got questions.
Oh boy. All right, Colin.
How does the gist integration work? Because that sounds like an awesome idea. Like, can I just like shoot it up to GitHub's gist servers and like have my code there?
Yeah, it's really neat. I haven't done it, but I watched a video on it, and I think it is the Josh Cheek video, if I remember correctly. But yeah, you just tell pry to shoot it up to its, I can't even remember the command, but give me a second here. If you
that's still awesome no matter what.
Yeah, if you type in, no, darn it. No, I forgot my, okay. So if you just type in help, once it loads, it'll give you all the options here. So right here, where's the gist? Don't see it right now. But it tells you yeah, somewhere down in here is the gist, and right here it is. So
I had no idea that Pry was so
it's
much more. Like, I've only used it for stupid, simple things.
No.
Instead of putting a put statement in my code so I could see.
Oh, I know. And I used to do that. And then, like, I'm gonna give a shout out to my mentor because he's like, "Why are you not using Pry?" I was like, "I have no idea what Pry is." So he's the one that showed me the basics. And there's so much more that I don't even know how to do. But yeah, if you do this gist, it shoots it up and it gives you the URL, and it's just really amazing what this can do. And like I said, I don't know half of it. So.
That's
but
awesome.
Yeah, look in the documentation. It's very well spelled out in the wiki.
Awesome. Have any other questions? Going once, going twice. All right.
Thumbs up for me. This was super awesome.
Yeah, super helpful. Great job. Again, you bring it. All right.
Yeah, I have to apologize for the chalkboard. I'm kind of in teacher mode with the homeschooling, so it was a little, that's why.
No worries. All right, next up we have Nehemiah doing scraping with import.io, and I'm sure I butchered your name, so I apologize for that.
No problem, it's close. So yeah, my name is Nehemiah Andrews. Can you guys all hear me okay? Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna just chat about import.io. It's a really easy to use web scraper that basically takes web scraping and makes it non-developer-y, and then helps you turn pretty much the web, or it adds an API to the web, I guess is the way I like to look at it. So I'm just gonna kind of dive in and give you a rundown on what it does and the different tools they have available to you. They have several different options for scraping web pages. For those of you who don't know, scraping a web page is basically using some sort of software to programmatically extract data from HTML and HTML, JavaScript, CSS elements within an individual web page. And I'm going to share my screen right now so you can kind of see the different options that they provide. They've got things known as a magic API, an extractor, a connector, and a crawler. Those are just different ways to pull data out of individual web pages. And I am not sure how exactly do we share our screen. Oh, there's the big button. Sweet. My desktop. There we go. So, here's the import.io website. They've got one really simple way to get data out. They use IKEA page as an example. You just enter in a URL and they're going to scrape the data out of the page. If we just click that, it'll show you what they do really simply. This took an IKEA page and turned all the data in that page into a table. And then they generate an API so you can extract that data through as a JSON object or something. A project that I was recently doing at work was a coworker of mine asked for some data about some phone installers from a specific website that he had. So we went to this website, and it's really a pain because you can enter in a zip code, you can search, and you can find an individual installer. It shows some data about them, but it's paginated, and it's not truly paginated. It's like some JavaScript pagination, so you're not actually flipping to a new page. If you go to an individual installer's site, you'll see up here they've got some keys that aren't really easily parsable, because you've got an address ID, which is some random unique value, and then this other ID value up here, which is another random unique key. There's not any way for me to know this, unless I wrote the database. So what I did with this was built a little bit of an extractor within import.io, and I won't run through all the steps because that'll take a little while. But basically, maybe spent half an hour, 45 minutes working on this, and from that page, managed to generate this table right here. And this is a table of all of the data that you just saw in that other browser tab. And you have to go through and kind of pick out the objects sometimes, the different HTML elements, so that the application knows what you're looking for. But that's just a point and click interface, so that's super simple to deal with. It'll bring up a web page, you click on an element, and it finds all other common elements or similar ones on the page. And then you add in the data, give it a header, a column name, which I named all of these myself when I was building this out. It'll automatically pull the names from the elements within the page for you if you don't want to go through that effort. But this is what I built, and then if I go to this next tab over, you can see this JSON object that it generated. So that's all of the data I was looking for from that website as an object I can work with. You can export into, obviously JSON is readily available. They also have a couple of other export options. You can create data sets, so that's its own independent thing you can pull data from. They have a simple API integration. You click that button, and it just gives you a URL for a RESTful GET request. Super simple. And that is basically how you, on the import.io side, set up a scraper to pull data off the web. So what I ended up doing, I'm still working on this app, so it's not fully functional. I'm going to show you a little bit of the code that I wrote. We got this basic controller. I just kind of stripped out the individual parts of the string, because if you saw that API string is pretty long. There's a API GUID involved. There is a user ID and an API key, set them, pushed them into environment variables, and then concatenated this into a single string. Added a couple of gems to my application so that I could use a REST client, and then passed in this REST string. And then I parsed it with a JSON gem. Really super simple, this part of it, maybe half an hour to get set up, figure out where the gems are and whatnot. And then I'm just passing this @parsed object into my view. And now I've got a JSON object, which if you know how to parse, how to walk through a JSON object, super simple. I just find the individual headers, which if we go look back here, I'm just keying on each of these fields and saying I want to display it. And now this is up on Heroku. And if I just refresh this page, it might take a second. And this is obviously quick and dirty. If anything, I'd probably want to take these data values and push them into a database and then add some attributes to them, which is really where the power of this is. If I see data on the web, you can go get it, right? I mean, we can all open a web browser, type something in, and see something. But what I want to do is take this data from this website. It returns these different phone installers to me. And maybe I want to call somebody and say, hey, can you do this job for me? And if they say yes, and if they're good, then I want to be able to make a note of that and have some good usable business data. So then I can use this import.io, pull that data into my own database, and then, using all the tools that we've been learning here, push it into a usable web app. So yeah, this is just, again, this is not very complicated code. There are just a couple of gems, and the API call, since it's RESTful, is really super simple. You don't even need a dedicated import.io gem in your application. This is just, pretty standard off-the-shelf Ruby on Rails application. So that is basically what I did here. I mean, I could take a minute, since I'm probably running up on my 7 minutes, but I'll run over by just a minute or so and kind of walk through the setup and training part of this. That'll just take a minute. This is an application you can download and install on your local machine. You can do a little bit through the web, but the more involved stuff, you actually have to download this application. I took this URL that I found from the website, pasted it into the application, so I want to actually, train the application, find the stuff for me. You go to the site, or you enter the URL, browse the page. It's got its own built-in browser. Tell it what type of extractor you want to use. You can do a little bit of reading on the site to figure out exactly how they all work. I know I want to do a connector. I don't need to authenticate, so that's cool. It'll get you past authentication if you need to do that. And then I'm actually going to say playback mode, which I already recorded something, but you could go to a page, do some recording, actually creates a macro for you, so that you can go through a couple of steps if you really need to. And again, I've got a URL pattern. So this page that I go to, this particular URL, I've just created an input variable, which will be part of my actual API call. And once I put this in here, I've added an input. You can see it there. Take me to the next step. Ask me if there's a lot of things I want to find or one. I know that. And you just kind of click through a wizard. Tell if there's actual pagination, which trial and error told me that no, it doesn't have pagination because of the route that I'm going. And then it says, you know, let's train it. So let's get some example data. I punch in an example. I query. So this is basically querying the API that I'm building. And yes, it shows me the data that I want to see. And then this is where it's actually pretty awesome. I find an individual element that I want to find. I highlight it. I click it and I say train. Hey, I found one of them. I click another one. Click train rows. I found 2. Click this third one. It's got 10 now. We found similar elements. There's probably a little bit of variation in the code here. And then I click this one. If I hit train again, now I've got 30 rows. So it found all these elements on this page. I've got all 30. And now you can go through and add the individual columns. And these are the things you already saw that I had. I had add column, I call it company. I'll click this. I've got phone. And then if I want to go back and train these on something else, I click on another company, I select the column, I click train. Now it found the company for every single element on the page. I do the same thing with phone, select phone column, hit train, and that's that. And then once I do that, you can go to several different examples so it really figures out how it works. And then that's basically the process I went through to generate this API right here. So that is import.io in about a 10-minute nutshell.
That was awesome.
Mind blown.
I do have one big question. How does it work with infinite scrolling sites? So the big problem with some scrapers is that you have to figure out how to handle infinite scrolling. So you just scroll and scroll and scroll. There's no page end. Have you come across a website that handles this? I was looking for one a few weeks ago. I wanted to build a scraper, but I can't remember what the site was for, so now I can't even see if we can do it as an example.
I honestly haven't tried it yet. How is the infinite scrolling implemented? What technology do they use to do that?
JavaScript.
Okay, so I know that in the desktop application, when you go to like if I canceled out of the connector here, I don't know if it'll even let me cancel out from where I'm at. I'd probably have to relaunch it. But in the desktop app, when you first load a page and you're building up your when you're building up the actual application or the API you're trying to do, it'll let you switch between parsing CSS or HTML or JavaScript. So I would imagine if you throw in, and it's just got a little button at the top you click to switch between the three. So I'd imagine if you throw in an infinite scrolling site and trip it to the JavaScript, it'll probably parse that code and at least give it a shot.
That's awesome.
How did you find out about this? Because like I've been doing scraping for so long, and this is just so cool. Like, how did you find out about it?
Google. I was just trying to figure out how to scrape some sites. The original use case that I had was, my company does IT staffing and that sort of thing, and we were doing a job for one location for a company that had like 30 or 40 sites. And I asked them to give me a spreadsheet of the phone numbers and addresses of all of their sites, and they couldn't do it for me. And I was just like, why? Why not? So then I realized that they had a search by location feature on their website, and I punched in an address, and I looked at it, I thought, well, maybe I can scrape this data. So I just did a little bit of research, and yeah.
So cool.
About it.
Well, I just tested it on Twitter and it works. So
Nice.
Twitter's infinite scroll. Awesome.
That's pretty
Anybody
awesome.
else have any questions?
All I know is we never have to write a script again to scrape a page if we need something. Saves so much time.
I've you might have said this before, but how much is it? Does it cost any money?
No, it's totally free.
Oh, that's awesome.
They do have an enterprise version. I haven't really bothered to figure out what the enterprise version gives me beyond what the free version gives me, because I've been able to do everything that I need to with the free version. So
yeah, I think what they do for the enterprise is like big data solutions. So if you have huge databases, that's when they give you the tool so you can build APIs to query stuff really fast. And like for everyone else, it's just free. So
Cool.
you use that, and then you're a big company with big databases, and then you want to keep using it.
Yeah.
Is there any way to tie in authentication with it? Because
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. That's even
Yeah, so
better.
when you're going through and building it, because that was another thing I was doing, is one of the systems that we do is a hosted or a hybrid hosted voice platform or VoIP platform. And the company themselves was giving me, or the vendor was giving me troubles with being able to watch their dashboard from multiple sites at the same time. So I kind of built a dashboard with this to scrape their site after authenticating and hit their dashboard and then aggregate that for multiple systems in one table, basically. So it's just when you're going through the wizard setting up one of those scrapers or extractors on the front end, it'll just say, do you need to authenticate? And if you hit yes, then it'll let you punch in your credentials and go from there.
That's awesome. I'm sold on it. Any other questions? No? All right.
I think everyone is doing the magic import right now.
Right.
Everybody will be distracted.
Everybody post your magic API in the chat so we can see what we've all found.
All right. Next up, we have Ben, and he is going to show us how to use Vim. And I'll let you take it away.
All right. So this is not a super technical talk, so it won't be like that or any of the other ones. So let's. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
All right, cool. So this is a brief history of Vim from tmux to dot files. I was so inspired by Michaela's talk that I went out and made this, and I think it's beautiful. So, I have this thing in the way. 1 second. All right, who are you? I'm a software engineer too at Liaison International. I'm a Firehose alumni. I check all the pre-work and Slack forums and, help out there. And I was a slow pitch softball MVP. So these are pretty much the best credentials I have. What are we talking about? tmux, which is having a whole mess of terminals inside one terminal. You can have, different windows. It's great. You can use teammate, which is sharing your terminal between two different users, which we'll demonstrate here. And we have Vim, which is editing right inside your terminal. And then also dot files. Dot files are for customizing your terminal. So what is tmux? tmux is terminal multiplexer, which is fancy for saying you can use a whole bunch of terminals. And I'll demonstrate that next, but I have the obligatory Inception GIF here for that. Let's see. So here is my terminal. And tmux is a little bit tricky to use at first. So there's a prefix you have to hit. And then once you do that, let's see. I don't know why that's not working. I don't know if the screen share is screwing with that. My prefix isn't working. All right, hold on 1 second. I'm going to stop screen share and see if this will work. It's not working, guys. This is going great. All right, quit an iTerm. Yeah, you do need more gifts. I know, they're coming. I'll feed you. This is bizarre. Hold on just 1 second. I'm going to see if I can get on my desktop.
Now you're the only one stopping yourself from watching football.
I'm watching football. I have it on over here. I'm all right. This is bizarre. I don't know why this is working though. All right. Well, maybe we can just move on. I think Vim's going to work. Vim's working great. All right. Well, I can show a demonstration after for anyone who wants to see tmux. I'm not going to hold this up for that. But like I said earlier, tmux is very tricky at first. There's a prefix that you have to learn, and then there's about 30 different keys that come in handy. There's different keys for splitting the screen horizontally and vertically.
Hey, Ben, we can't see your screen anymore, just as a heads up.
Okay. This is going great. All right. Are we good?
You're
All
good.
right, cool. So best ways to practice tmux: mess around inside of tmux while looking at commands. And there are no other ways. You will fail if you try to do it any other way. There's way too much stuff to try to remember. You cannot do it. It's going to make it a lot harder for you. And I'm sorry for that. There's no other ways. What is Teammate? Teammate is a tool based on tmux for terminal sharing. So it's my favorite tool for pairing because you get to use it with Vim. And Vim is what we're getting into next. So let's see if I can get a tmux session going. What you need to do for tmux is type tmux. And it's also not working. What is going on? It doesn't give me the SSH at the bottom. So what usually happens is you get an SSH key down at the bottom over here. I'm not sure why it's not happening here. Maybe I actually try it in terminal. Nope. I don't know why this is happening.
Type teammate instead of tmux?
Yeah, you're right. It was sessions nested, so it thinks I already have a tmux session going. Yep, there it is. All right, so I'm going to send this over to myself on my desktop computer with this cat gif on the top. And now I'm connected.
So Ben, are you simulating right now pair programming with somebody else on two different?
Yeah, so this is pair programming. I'm not typing on my laptop here. It's my hand. I'm typing on my desktop here, and you share the terminal window with somebody. So if I wanted to, this is my laptop right here that we're on, because I sent somebody else my SSH key, so someone else is on my computer right now. So if I was on my desktop here and I wanted to get into my works project, I could do that, and I can get into that, because you can't share a terminal and then get into an atom like that. So, or you can't get into a Sublime text. So where it really comes in handy using Vim is when you can use the editor inside of Teammate. So if I wanted to look into my works DB schema, which is a giant nightmare. We have 5,500 lines in our schema. So if I want to do that, I can get in there and I can goof around with that. So if I wanted to edit it and I wanted to say we don't need academic enrichments, we can blow that up. And now it's gone, along with too much other stuff. So that's what's great about Vim, is it's really good for pair programming with tools like tmux, and it really comes in handy for stuff like that. I wouldn't be able to work remotely if I didn't have that, because otherwise we would all just be on a Google Hangout, chit-chatting, saying, well, delete that, and it's a huge pain. The other great thing about it, too, is since two people are sharing the terminal, if I'm editing something over here, I'm on my desktop, I can also do the same thing on my laptop. So one person doesn't always have complete control. You can do whatever you want. It's two people working it at the same time. So what we are on to next is, what is Vim? Vim is an editor built right into your terminal. You probably have it already installed. Vim is very customizable and easy to pair with, like we just showed, and Vim is impossible to learn. And I was wrong when I said that, because Vim is not impossible to learn. It's just super intimidating and very hard if you don't know the right steps. So the four biggest blockers, which I found a lot of guides which were great, but nobody really talks about just the super, super basic stuff. Everyone kind of glosses over it. So how do I open files? How do I move inside of Vim? How do I write inside of Vim? And how do I close Vim? Which are things you really take for granted because they are so simple with other editors like Sublime and Atom. And you just open Vim by typing Vim. So that's super simple. And you can just type Vim inside. So I'm in WebEmit is my company's project. So we hit Vim, and there we are in Vim. And from inside Vim, just like you can use like fuzzy find in Atom, and you can use fuzzy find in Sublime Text. You can use that in Vim too. So I open it up and I hit Control P is fuzzy find for Vim. And from there, you can find whatever file you want. Observation hours is a nightmarish ticket I just worked on. So here's everything for observation hours, and you can find anything you want just like that. So that's kind of the trick with opening stuff in Vim. You can also type vim dot, and it'll open up the whole directory. And this isn't a super good way to open stuff in Vim, because this is obviously way more than you want to see. So it's usually best to open up Vim and Control P to find exactly what you're looking for. How do I move in Vim? So this, if you look up the keyboard for how to use Vim, this is what you find. And it is obviously really intimidating. And this is not what you want to see when you're asking, how do I move down one line? So in Vim, what you need to do to move is you have 4 keys right in a row, H, J, K, and L. H is left, J is down because it's like a down symbol, K is up, and L is right. And it actually does get pretty intuitive. It's really hard when you first start doing it, but with some practice, just like everything else in Vim, it'll start to come to you. How do I write in Vim? So there's 3 different modes in Vim. There's actually more, but these are the ones you're going to focus on. Normal, which is just moving around. Insert, which is inserting new text, and that's how you write. Visual, which is text selections, manipulations of sections. So it's like highlighting a bunch of text. And the one that gets everybody is, how do I quit Vim? How do I exit Vim? I've seen people just stop wanting to learn Vim because they don't know how to exit Vim. The best way to exit Vim is, if you want to write the changes that you've quit, that you've made and quit, it is :WQ for write quit. You can also write and not quit. You can just quit if you haven't made any changes, and you can force quit, which is just saying, I'm done. I don't want to save any of these changes, but I'm done with this. And you can also Command Q if you're really frustrated. Best way to practice Vim. You can mess around inside of Vim while looking at Vim commands, and there are no other ways. It is impossible to practice Vim if you're not looking at some type of reference, pretty much. And I just want to fit this Kanye West dancing gif in there. There's no reason. And we got these transitions. So Vim culture. Vim has a reputation of everyone's an evangelist for it. Everyone is super into Vim, or they just don't use it. So this picture right here is a pretty good screenshot of that. It's over 1 year, the average Vim user saves 11 minutes in productivity, although they lose 27 hours through evangelizing Vim non-users. And also, how do you know if a developer uses Vim? Don't worry, they will tell you. That is also very true. I don't think I've ever met someone at my work who doesn't say, I use Vim within the first 2 days of talking to them. And dot files. Dot files are really good for customizing your terminal. If you saw my terminal, it probably looks a lot different than many other terminals you've seen. Certainly if you use just basic terminal, it looks nothing like that. So it's great for customizing your terminal, aliases, and everything else. So you can start by stealing somebody else's dot files. These dot files are actually really simple to get. They're ThoughtBot's dot files. It took maybe 10 minutes to install them, getting all the dependencies sorted out. So one of the aliases that I have, which I'm 100% sure is not going to work, and we can take a look at why that is Ross, and it will play Rick Ross, or it should play Rick Ross. So in this case, it's not going to play Rick Ross because it says, hey, what's going on here? So what we're going to do is we're going to go figure out why that is. So it's pointing towards dot files. So I don't think I have a dot files. I guess I do. All right, so we don't have, I'm not using dot files. Those are old dot files that I'm using. So inside dot files, we are looking for Vim alias. So here what we're doing is we're typing Vim, and then we're typing the path of the file that we're opening, which is aliases. And here, this is aliases Ross for Rick Ross. And we're not pointing this toward dot files because I have Spotify control inside of this. So I wrote quit, I changed it. I think we need to get over to a new terminal because we just changed an alias. That was way too loud. But that's just about it. So dot files are really intimidating at first too. So you have all this stuff going on. And that's why if you simply Google dot files, ThoughtBot, for example. These are the ones I grabbed. There's about 10 commands you need to run, and it ends up looking great. Comes with a lot of great aliases that'll save you a lot of time too. So like G just stands for get, and it also stands for get status. So if I want to get checkout master, I can G up, which is a fetch and rebase, and it's that quick. You don't need to worry about anything else. And I mean, there's a lot of great stuff built into them. You just got to find the right ones for you. So that is it. Sorry about the mix up with teammate, T-Mugs. Any questions?
So I have a question. Do you use Vim all the time or only for pair programming?
No, I use Vim probably 20% of the time and Atom for the rest of the time. I'm trying to use more Vim, just be better at pair programming, but I'm a lot better at Atom. So I'm not really trying to force the issue with Vim, because I know for the amount of time I'm going to have to spend in Vim being slow, it's not going to translate to being more effective. So I'm kind of trying to work a little bit more in Vim, but I'm very good at Atom, so I'm working in Atom for now still. Probably like 80-20. You have to pair in Vim if you're going to do pair programming remotely.
This has nothing to do with Vim really, but does Teammate pass through audio, or do you guys use something else for your audio?
No, we usually use Google Hangouts for audio. We use HipChat too. HipChat has pretty much Google Hangouts capabilities in it, but we just don't use it. We pretty much stuck on Google Hangouts.
Cool.
Yeah.
How long do those SSH keys live for those sessions in Teammate?
I programmed with someone for 10 hours before, no issues at all. We didn't have to start anything up. One time we actually dropped it and then came back to it the next morning and it was working. So it's kind of concerning, but it worked out great. And I think there's a way that you can force close it. I know there were a lot of complaints about that initially because there are security holes that you can screw with on there. So there were complaints. I think they ended up doing that. But usually just close it. I should probably actually manually close it, but I usually just exit the window.
What's the score, Ben?
Huh?
What's the score?
That's 0-0 at the end of the first. That's why Teammate wasn't working.
If we grab that SSH key off the video, then we can mess with your computer, right?
Hold on. All right, I closed it. Yeah, go ahead. Do your worst.
Awesome. Anybody else have any other questions? Nope. All right. Next we have Faisal, and he is going to do a talk on continuous integration. And then also afterwards, I'll let you guys know. But if you don't want to hang out afterwards, you can dip out and don't worry about it. But we are going to continue to hang out and actually set up continuous integration for the Lightning Talks app. So if you want to hang out afterwards, I'll let you guys know again. So take it.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Colin. So my name is Faisal, and let me share my screen. There you go. All right. So continuous integration. So what is continuous integration? So in short, it's just basically an integration of code into a known or working code base. More briefly, it's a developmental practice that requires developers to integrate code into a shared repository several times a day. So then if you have a CI tool integrated, then each build is tested, and if you have any problems with that, you can detect like super quickly. This picture here sort of like it tells you about that. So in this picture, the guy on the left, Carl, is talking to Steve. He's sitting on a chair. That chair is like an analogy of a feature branch, and that feature branch is breaking the code, and hence it's freaking out there. And you can see like if it's freaking, it won't let you check in code that's broken. That's about it. All right. So why CI is such a rocking thing? So I have like a couple of pointers why it's such a rocking thing, because it solves like a couple of problems. So the first problem is that when you're working in a group project and several people are like working in parallel, so there's like an integration problem, and CI solves that integration problem. So how to make sure that work done separately can be integrated like nicely. So there are like different levels of integration problem. It's like merge conflicts, there are compilation conflicts, there are test conflicts. So let's say Colin has a bunch of feature branches to be merged into master, and those feature branches are not tested. That if we push that code to master and then to Heroku, whatever deployment platform you're using, that is going to work. So if we have a CI tool integrated, that will make sure that feature branch, so every time you like push a commit to the feature branch, it will build that code to production and everything if you have set it up that way. It will test that, and if you have any tests or any integrations that you have set up, it will test that and make sure that your code is clean to go. All right, so basic concepts of CI. So these are like some of the core concepts that are out there, that the system must be able to be built and tested. And one of the really important ones that everyone should commit their changes frequently. So like if you do that, then you know, like really early in the process that if the commit you have made has any problems or not. Upon commit, the system is immediately and automatically integrated, and the magic is that it's all automatic. And the whole practice is like you doing developments in time increments, which is sort of like good practice. Next is like how it works. It's like a brief overview how does the linear dynamic process goes through. So you sort of like working in your private workspace, and then when you're done, you commit changes to the repository, and then the CI continuous integration server monitors the repository because you have integrated through GitHub or whatever other code base you have integrated through. It will check out any changes that happen to your code, and then it will build the system and runs unit test or any integration test, and then the CI server informs the team of any if your if the build is successful, it will tell you. If not, it will alert you, and then you sort of have to, like, if there's any problem, you just have to like look at it and then fix it if the software can't do that part. And then you have to sort of like continually integrate and test throughout the project. So this picture here is sort of like the gist of it. You have a GitHub logo, and there's a Bitbucket logo here. And then this whole circle, I think I got this picture from CodeShip. So all the magic happens here. So every time when you have integrated CI tool, whenever you do like git push, origin master, or origin whatever feature branch, all of this magic happens. And then when you have set it up to like deploy to production, once everything is good, it will go up and do that. So automatic production, deployment to production, that's part of it. All right, so these are some of the tools that are up there. CodeShip, Travis, Jenkins, some of the old ones used to be called Hudson. I can imagine those being complex, but in my opinion and from my experience and in our chess app project, we as a group decided to like go with CodeShip because it was like their UI is really slick, and it was like really easy to set up. Like 5 minutes, I was able to integrate my Flixtor app and the chess app. I did play with Travis, and we were having some problems. You maybe not, but like I would suggest CodeShip if you're like a beginner like me and a lot of people here. All right. Next, so these are some of the pain points I think there are like CI tools are solving. It's like no more manual push to production. You don't have to like worry about like git push or master and then worry about like databases being migrated and all that. Bugs and problems discovered quickly. So if you have a bug in your code, you wrote some logic that doesn't work or it's breaking some of the tests, and as soon as you push your commit and push to GitHub, it will like tell you that something's wrong. The system is like deployable more frequently since you have like a feature branch, and if it's working, you can quickly deploy to production. Yep. Yeah. So like if you're working on Splurdy or Nomster, I would say like finish that according to the like Firehose curriculum, and then once you're done, you should like try integrating a CI tool to because it's like important to like know the manual process too. But once you have that integrated, then you don't have to like worry about pushing to Heroku and then migrating the data. It does all by itself. Yep, that was that. And then if you stay around, then me and Colin are going to work on integrating CI into one of the Lightning Talk apps. Yep, so that's about it. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Awesome, good job. Anybody have questions?
Are you guys doing a live demo now?
Yeah, eventually. I mean, we'll let everybody go if they want to. We don't need to keep them around if they don't want to hang out for it.
Well, I'm down for a live demo.
Well, if anyone else wants to stick around after this live demo to see T-Mux is working right now.
Hey, Vessel, I've got a quick question for you.
Yes, Matt.
I'm basically a shill right now since we're on the group project together. But so when you're talking about having it monitor your GitHub repo or whatever and do testing for you, what branches is it watching for you? And how does that stop you from breaking your code?
So I remember we had I can give you an example. We had some tests, and the way we had logic in there, so it will look for the feature branch. it will look for every feature branch that comes in. And every time you do git push version to that feature branch, every time you do commit, it tracks the changes. And then every time you push, it knows that the new code is up. And then it runs all the tests. Just like we do rake in the console, it runs the tests and makes sure all of them are passing. So yeah, I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Yeah, because I didn't really work on it when you were doing the deployment. You set that up. So when you did the initial setup, you basically just add the repo to.
Yeah, so like you do the repo, and then you like do a bunch of like configurations. It asks for your Heroku API key, something like that, some key from Heroku, and then you tell them like when you want to push to Heroku. Is it only when you merge it to master, or like if you have the option to like push to Heroku on each feature branch, or
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
No worries.
So I have a question. Did the workflow that you take change much once you started using CodeShip, or can you talk about maybe like anecdotes of like the how like this CI has made your life better?
Yeah, so like before CI, I would be like worrying about if the code I have written, if the logic is working. Even though I have like tested locally, maybe if Nimai has wrote some other logic, some of the tests, and that happened. Like the tests I wrote were failing because we had some old tests, and they have like some factories. The way the factories were built were right, and locally it was like all working, and then when I pushed to up there to Heroku, and it was breaking. So I think it's really time saving, and that's the kind of like life. Before I would have to worry about like migrating data to Heroku, and then you push Heroku master. Doing all that, you don't have to worry about that once you time saving and not worrying about like if you have any broken code.
He and Josh just broke up, and she's devastated.
I thought we were talking about you and Blair.
Now we're talking about Harry and Josh. Great.
That's funny.
All right.
Who's watching TV?
I've got a little Inception going on, so.
I can't believe Chuck Liddell is still air thrusting like that.
Am I sharing my screen still? I'm not sure how to get rid of it.
If you hover over your screen at the very bottom, you should see a little button that says "Stop Screen Share."
I think it might be actually at the top.
At the top, sorry. Yep.
Oh, okay, cool.
There you go.
Cool, good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, so our live demo works, and I don't have an environment set up, so we're gonna have to do it on my laptop. But does anybody else have questions for continuous integration?
Just a quick one sentence on top of it, right? If you right now, and I think Faisal said that too, if you're in the Splitty or if you're in the Nostr, don't necessarily go in and trying to set up CodeShip right now. It's like first you got to be really comfortable with how to use Git and GitHub, and then do that next. This is the next step because it's automation that will make it easier for you to deploy. But at the same time, you want to make sure you have everything set up properly and you know what's happening when you push up to master.
True. Yeah.
And actually, I want to respond to Ken's question about anecdotes for changing workflow, because I'm in Vessel's chess group, and one of the things that I saw that it was something that I forget about all the time when I'm pushing directly to Heroku is raking my database. Getting all those getting those migrations done. And when you get that CI in place, you don't even have to think about that anymore because you can set it to automatically do a bundle install, automatically do a rake, all that sort of thing for you when you do that push. And it just becomes, once you've got it working, you rake locally, run all your tests, you push it up there and it greens up and pushes up to Heroku or whatever you're deploying on. You don't even have to think about that. It's just once you've pushed to that master branch or merged a pull request, your code goes live on your app. So that's pretty sweet.
Cool, good stuff. All right, Colin. So what's the plan?
we're gonna try it. So as far as everything goes, we're all done with the lightning talks. So do a little house cleaning. The next talks will be October 1st. So come and check those out. It'll be at the same time. You'll get emails just like we did last time. If you want to take a look, you can go to the Firehose Lightning Talk app, which I am slacking and don't have a link for you right now. So you can go to that app and take a look. Three of the 5 talks are already scheduled. I think we're actually going to have 6 now because Tate's going to jump in. So we'll do those, and then we need 4 people yet to sign up for the following talks. So if you have a topic you want to talk about or hear about, you can just go to the app and sign up for it. Other than that, I think that's it for the talks.
Cool stuff. Should I continue recording through like the live demo, or do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, what I plan on doing is we'll record through the live demo, and then I'll edit out the actual demo and put it into a separate video so that we can post it.
Cool.
Somewhere.
I have one quick shout out for there's some students in here right now that are going through the intro course right now. So thanks to you guys for coming in. I hope this wasn't completely over your head because we went pretty deep in advance on some of the topics. But thanks for hanging in there and seeing where this can all go and and going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole with a lot of people. I just showed you how it looks down there. So so thanks for coming, guys.
You let the intro students who have to submit stuff to me watch me goof up for 5 minutes?
He's not as infallible as he seems.
Yeah. I didn't want to point that out, but you pointed it out yourself.
Yeah. No, I'm sure they're very impressed with my answers.
Hey, you got the Vim working, so that's pretty good.
I have Teambucks working now, too.
Yeah, you can still come back, have a comeback.
I'll still come back strong.
All right, so I think how we're gonna have to do this is I got my laptop set up here, and because I was unprepared, I didn't set up my Windows environment for this. So basically, let me know what you need from me. I'll share my screen, and we can walk through the process.
Okay.
So can you just give maybe a quick overview about at a high level, what are we actually going to do here?
Okay, so this is our Lightning Talks app that you can see at the link I put in the chat. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up continuous integration so that we have that available for our app. Awesome live demos.
All right, so Colin, you ready?
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
If I didn't break everything. Okay, so this is our app, and just let me know what you gotta do. I already signed into CodeShip, so.
Okay, so yeah, we can get in there, and yeah, I can. Yeah, so like the new project, create my first project. You can go click on there. All right, so we're using GitHub.
So guys, no pressure, but I'm going climbing with Mo, Captain Mo, the guy in the picture next week, who's the CEO of CodeShip. So don't mess that up.
So Colin, you can like click on the one the
Find our repo.
Yeah.
I'll have to search for it.
You have so many. There you go. I see it.
I do a lot of stuff in my free time.
So just to sort of clarify, before you actually showed it to us, did you sign up with GitHub? Is that how it knew how all the stuff was in your account?
Yep. So what I did is I signed up with GitHub, and then once you sign up with GitHub, because I'm members of 3 different groups, so I have my own set of repositories, and I have my group project and the Lightning Talk, or in the Firehose community stuff. So then I just selected who I was signing up as, and then what group I gave permission to the Lightning Talks app to be able to handle this. So it was very easy. It took me literally less than a minute to do. So.
All right. So next up, we want to like click on that drop down and then choose Ruby on Rails. And then if you scroll down, just like save and go to the dashboard. Right now it's asking us to like do a push, so like probably make a change or something and push that to probably make a feature branch or something. And then we can configure like Heroku.
And we're just going to push normally?
Yeah, just push to the GitHub.
All right.
Cool. So if you go back to the code chip, now it's running.
My mom and I got into a huge fight, and she left early. But I still think her visit was a good thing.
You can actually click on that and see like what is it doing.
Sorry about you and mom. Maybe I can make up for that error in judgment. Just force these to Lakers game.
That's really cool. Travis CI doesn't really let you see it in real time.
The UI is like Coach UI is pretty like it's like 5 minutes where like basically have integrated the code chip in there. All we have to do now is like integrate Heroku and then for deployment, and we're done.
Awesome. I'll just have to remember not to work in master branch anymore. So this seems a lot less painless than what Travis CI was. I know in our group project, Vu worked on setting up Travis for our environment. It seemed like it was quite a bit more of a struggle than this.
Yeah, but Travis, you had to like add a travis.yaml file, and then you have to like configure a bunch of like variables in there in that file, and you have to actually specify Ruby version and stuff like that. You can get that. I actually got stuck on like the Ruby version stuff with Travis. And in the end, it was Travis kept telling that we have some untracked files in our project directory that we didn't even have in our project directory. And it was just like making up stuff.
We had that issue too. Was it RBX?
Something like that. And then our mentor said, go with the code chip, try it out.
Yeah, one of the kind of annoying things with Travis is I think it by default sets it up to like test it against a bunch of different Ruby versions. And if it's just like a Rails app, it's like, do you really care if it works against 192? Do you care about 187? Do you like your server is running a certain version? Like, does it actually matter? Like, sometimes it does if you're like maintaining a gem. But for something like this, it just really gets in the way. So yeah, I think CodeShip does that pretty good. The fact that it's just so easy to get started.
Yeah, I really noticed that with Travis CI. We had to spend time and specifically deal with versions and that just seemed more of a pain than it was necessary.
Yeah. So I think it's built now. So if you go to if you scroll up and go to like project settings.
Where is that? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, and then deployment. And then you can say like branch is exactly master. You can just say whenever the feature branch is pushed to master, only then push to Heroku. Or like however we want to set it up, you can do that.
Okay. Do it with master.
Yep. And then
did I click too soon?
No. Yeah.
Okay. There's a delay on my side. So.
Yeah. So and then you have to like go down and actually select their deployment platform, which is Heroku. Yep, there it is. And then you can name it and the name is like whatever like your Heroku URL is. It's like I think it's Lightning Talk Apps. You have to name it the same as Heroku project name.
Okay. And then I need an API key.
Yeah, if you just go to Heroku and then I think if you go to settings, it's there. Let me see this. If you I think if you click on, did you find that?
Hey, Colin, I think back on CodeShip, there's actually a link that I'm guessing. It said, get your Heroku API key here.
Perfect.
Thanks, Amaya.
I'm a big fan of the easy button.
There it is.
No, don't copy my API key. So if I change my API key, is this still? I'll have to come back and update this later. I don't need my API key recorded on the internet.
And just hit create, and then I think that should do it. Yeah. So that should be it. If you want to test it out, you can just push to the master branch again with some sort of like UI change, and then it should show up on the.
Now, let's see. Do I have to run Heroku? So with like Travis CI, if I did a git push, if that's all I did was just git push, it will push to Heroku automatically.
Yeah, it will do that. If you push to the master, it will like push to Heroku then, and it will give you like yeah.
Does it give you any sort of verification that it was pushing to Heroku?
So like you can see in the CodeShip if you go there, and it will tell you like it's build is like done, and then it'll give you like the URL to go to, which is like your Heroku app URL. If you select the project from like that top, yep, it's running.
Yeah, one of the other things I really like about CodeShip is I feel like it just has a lot of the stuff just installed on it, and you don't have to worry about it. I think with Travis, like Image Magic was something we were using, and it like basically I don't think it comes like pre-packaged, but like as far as I know, CodeShip has that sort of built right into the system. So that's also like another cool feature of it.
Can we use like CodeShip with Firehose, right? So.
Yeah, we use it a little bit. We actually don't have the deployments part set up, but I kind of want to set that up. It's just we're on the free tier, and we just kind of like aggressively commit. So we have so many commits that it doesn't really work out.
I was curious to check out their activate your like parallel CI trial. I was like just curious to like test that. How does that work? It's like I could imagine like a bunch of different pipelines, and if you have like a large code base, a bunch of different people are working, it should be helpful.
Definitely.
So it looks like everything is done running.
Yeah. So if you like scroll down, and you should see like it telling that hey, which to Heroku or something.
Oh. Okay. Well, let's see if it did or not.
Yeah, I see like check URL there. Yep, there you go.
And it looks like that little snippet of code's right there.
Awesome. Cool.
Sweet. Now we have.
Yep.
We have that set
So,
up.
Colin, one of the things you probably want to check out there is if you go back into CodeShip and look at your project settings or your deployment settings, there is an option. There are some options when you're setting up the deployment pipeline that you could say, I think it was edit deployment settings or something like that.
Project settings and then deployment.
Yeah, there you go. So you see there it's, got whether or not it's going to run your migrations or anything like that. So if you do edit deployment pipeline settings, it'll do and tell it to run those migrations, they'll just automatically do that rake DB migrate for you in case you add any
That's cool.
Do any table migrations or anything.
Awesome. I'll have to jot that down. Cool. So is that it?
Yeah, that's about it.
That is
a lot more. Like you can have like a bunch of settings, manipulate according to like whatever you want to do. If you have like a bunch of different branches, if you want to test that, before it goes to master, I want to like test, before Heroku before that, you can do that too. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, this was very painless. So
yep, that's about it.
Cool.
Awesome. Cool stuff. Another cool dev tool that like everybody should know about is a Rollbar. I'll put it in the chat. It's something that if you haven't heard of it, it's pretty amazing. Basically, it'll send you an email whenever Heroku gives you an error message. And with the full stack trace. So it's another one of these kind of like must-have integrations with your web app. There's other ones out there like Airbrake and a handful of other ones, but you have to pay. Rollbar has a free tier, so highly recommend playing with that on any production app if you're doing it on the chess app. Like whatever, just it's super cool.
Funny side story on the CodeShip swag, when they send you t-shirts, you actually get a handwritten note with it. And when we got a handwritten note from it, Ken and I were wondering, who really wrote this? Is this printed or not? So I went to the CodeShip team. They're like just down the road from us. And I talked to them and I asked them, and they're like, oh no, that's actually one of their interns, one of their developer interns. Grandma does that in Austria because she has nothing else to do. So she writes all the cards for all the CodeShip customers from hand. I don't know if they still do that, but that's what they did about 3 months ago.
You gotta wonder how many she actually was writing.
I know. It was so cool because it was really well written, and so I was like, anyway. So
I requested their like t-shirts and stickers like when I used, the Coach CEO sent a link to go to, and I did
that. Uber for grandma's notes, exactly, Ben. So yeah, Faisal, when you get your swag, when you get the handwritten notes, take a picture and send it to us. I want to know if it's still the same. We can compare handwriting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, awesome.
GNAS.
Slowly getting late. This is
You still want a quick TMUX talk?
Yeah, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll stop sharing here.
It should really take about 2 minutes. It's super simple. If I can calm down the hype from Grandma Notes as a service, we'll move on. All right. Can you see my terminal?
Yep.
All right. We are moving. So let's see. So you can split north, south, east, west. You can change. There's a prefix you have to hit. On mine, it is Control and B. It changes with your dot files. So you can change that, and there's different key settings you can have. So here, what I like to do is you can have a Rails console. The next one, you can have a Rails server. In the top, you can just screw around and do whatever you want. Make DB migrate. You can have another one that's Rails DB. So you've got all this stuff going on, and if you really think that this is obviously too cluttered, to run a Vim session, and so what you might want to do is do a new window, and that's prefix C. And the prefixes are all, you need the guide to learn how to do them. It took a week for me to learn how to do those ones intuitively. So in here you could do, Vim config loads. And then in here, it can have the Vim session going. And if you say, I want to go back and see what's going on in the, the other window, you can do prefix N, and it'll bring you to the next window. You can just flip back and forth. So prefix up, down, left, right will bring you to whatever corresponding window that you're looking to get to too. And if you want to, you can just keep creating windows. So if you said we have an ETL process where, it helps set the data up to get into our web admit project. So I can have something going on over there in the transformer. Then I can just flip back here and see what's going on. So it's really good for, having quick access to different stuff. It's like stuff that you would have in different windows, but you don't have to click around. You can do, you can switch pretty quick between tabs too, but I think this is better. It's pretty quick, and the good thing about it too is you're not clicking around, which is kind of the Vim philosophy too. So you're moving along pretty quick. You don't have to take your fingers off the keypad too. So it's really quick once you get used to it, but it's a huge learning curve, just like Vim is. And you can close out of anything anytime you want to. Like if you're one of the two people who need to use Rails DB frequently, then you can keep it open. But if you want to quit it, then you can kill pain too. And then this looks a bit more normal. So you might have a Vim session above. Nah, I don't actually have models. So now it might make more sense to be poking through here, and then underneath, you can do something down here. Like you might want to exit Rails console and say, well, I need to check something out quickly in the transformer. Oh, not in weapon, I'm losing it. So you can get around really quickly. You just need to kind of learn how to do it. It's not intuitive at first, but once you get going, just like Vim, it all starts making sense. You just need to put, brute force hours into it to make sense out of it.
So Ben, what order did you learn this stuff? Did you basically just do it all at once? Like, hey, I'm going to learn Vim, Vim, TMUX, and what was the other tool you were using?
Teammate.
Teammate, was it like all at once and you're just like, okay, I'm just going to go in all of them? Or were you like, okay, first I'm going to learn Vim, and then after I learn Vim, I'll learn how to use this other one? What was the
actually, what I learned how to do today was this, is just splitting windows. I learned how to do that before the talk. So I saw my coworker while we were working with Teammate split it vertically like that, and I thought, oh, I should learn how to do that for this talk I'm about to give. So I learned how to do that. But very first, I started with just very super basic Vim knowledge. Like I learned it. I went on a little trip before I started this job, and I learned it on the plane. I just spent about 10 hours screwing around with Vim to try to get pretty good at it, because I knew that's how people pair programmed, and I didn't really want to come in, with my pants down, not knowing how to use Vim at all. And Teammate is really just you share a terminal, so you don't really need to learn Teammate. TMUX is what you really need to learn. So it's not really 3 tools that you need to learn. It's really just 2. And one of them is you're really not messing around with it too much. Like if you want to get your setup right, you know, it's just that. A lot of people will just do that. And you can save a session like that so that you come back into it and it's configured every time. But since I haven't really messed around too much with the Vim config with Tmux, I haven't really had a need to do that. I'm usually more prone to just, you know, create a new window and maybe split that, like have the console on the top, server on the bottom, and then in a new window, I'll have, you know, Vim, whatever I'm doing there. So I'm definitely not an advanced user by any means, but it's something that you need to put the time in to get a hang of.
Super interesting.
Yeah. But it's kind of hard to talk about it because you can't say, well, you hold caps locks, hit B, and then you hit, you know, quote sign, and then you hold caps locks, you hit B, and then you hit, you know, % sign. And so you really need to get your hands on it to understand it.
Yeah, it feels like you just want to go and try all these shortcuts out and go to that one slide that you shared earlier, which gives you all the shortcuts, and just try to navigate around Vim a little bit, and then just.
Yeah, and the best thing to do is just Google, I think it's teammate cheat sheet and Vim cheat sheet, and the best thing is they give you all the most common commands. But it's good to see it in person, because I remember when I heard about Vim, I opened it up and I thought, just, you know, what the hell is this? I have no idea what's going on here.
It's super fun to watch like screencasts of people who are really good at Vim, like just like wrangling the text in different ways, and it's just like, oh my god, it's like scary watching just like the text fly around the page.
You know who's amazing at Vim is Mike Kudermarsh, one of the mentors. He's just unbelievable at it. And I remember one night I was just in on a Saturday night and I was like, I really am struggling to learn Vim. He goes, why don't we just hop on a hangout and I'll teach you? It's like, oh, all right. So he did, and it was crazy watching him work around in it. And it's like, I see why people really want to focus on this and not, you know, mess around in Sublime and Atom, and just be confident when you can do this and be great at it. So.
He's a great guy. Great developer.
Yeah, he's good.
As Chris said, very confident.
Yeah.
Awesome, cool. Colin, do you wanna jump in, or are you still code shipping?
I was switching up API keys. I don't want to forget about it. I want to. Yeah, it's pretty crazy to watch people who are actually competent at Vim. Like when I was at Hash Rocket, all those guys were just like breezing through when they did their show and tell, and it was pretty amazing how fast they could get through it. I suck at it.
Yeah, I mean, I was working with a developer who's been, you know, around our company for something like 10 years. And I was pairing with him on something, but I was in Atom and he was just watching me work, and he was impressed with how I worked in Atom. So just kind of like, do I really want to spend all this time in Vim when I'm this good at Atom that I'm impressing people who have been developing for 10 years? Yeah, I probably should.
Cool, good stuff. Well, I think, does that sort of wrap this up? I think we're pretty good.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're all set. I think what I'll do is I'll edit your section, Ben, and put it in with the rest of your talk, so you kind of have this with that.
All right. I would appreciate that. Thank you. I got messy.
Yeah.
Make sure to leave in the struggling in
definitely. It'll be 30 minutes later.
If you want, you can just loop from like the very beginning where I can't figure it out to right before I say, screw it, let's move on. Just loop that for 10 minutes.
Can we get a GIF of that?
Yeah, I'm sure we can do that. It's going to go into my next lightning talk.
Perfect.
Cool, good stuff. Well, all right, guys. Well, this was fun. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess the next one is the first, I think, right, Colin?
Next was the first. The following one will be either the 15th or the 22nd. Probably the 15th, I think. I think we can do this every 2 weeks as long as I get people to sign up.
Are we full for the next one?
We are full for October 1st.
Oh, we are.
We have one person for the following talk.
So you got to sign up fast if you want to give one. So basically tonight you should go if you want to give one and sign up just to make sure you can get into one of these. But cool, good stuff.
Yeah, we only had one person signed up yesterday for the October 1st ones, and they signed up right after we got done with office hours. It was filled. So
popular stuff. Love it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, this was a blast. I think everybody learned a whole lot and super, super good talks like always. And yeah, this was a blast. So I think we're gonna call it. So thanks so much for coming, everybody. And we'll see you in like office hours and at the next one, which is in a few weeks. So yeah. In the meantime, get busy signing up for the next one.
Thumbs up, everyone, and we see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Colin.
Bye.